Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video, we will be doing a deep dive into the Vision Mumbai top-down development case study. This is an essential part of the specification for challenges of an urbanizing world. And I have included exam-style questions to give you an idea of what you could be asked in the exam. I have also done a video on the LSS Health Charity bottom-up development case study to help with the other side of the debate. I will link it in the description, and it will also be available on the case study playlist. Okay, let's get started. To simplify the case study, I have divided it into four main questions. So the first one is why? And why was Vision Mumbai needed? That's the first thing that we're going to be looking at. And then secondly, what? So what is Vision Mumbai? And then the how. How was Vision Mumbai going to be implemented? And then lastly, the outcome. What was the outcome of Vision Mumbai? And was it successful or not? All right, let's start with the first question, and that is why. Why was Vision Mumbai needed? And the first reason Vision Mumbai was needed is housing. Over 1,000 new residents arrive in Mumbai every day, and that is as a result of rural to urban migration. We know that Mumbai is a mega city and there are a lot of opportunities in Mumbai, and therefore people in rural India will move to Mumbai or migrate to Mumbai so as to take advantage of those opportunities, whether those opportunities be jobs, whether they be housing, whether better housing, whether it's better education or better healthcare. So when they move to Mumbai, then it puts a strain on the housing already in the city. So the population is actually growing a lot faster than houses can be built. And now, because these people come into Mumbai and sometimes may not get a job straight away, or may actually not, really struggle to get a job, they may end up not being able to pay their way through living in Mumbai. So they may not have money for a place to live. And some of them may end up on the street or live in poor accommodation. And actually, that is what has led to the development of slums. And we know that slums are low quality accommodation that lacks basic facilities such as water supply and sewage facilities. Now, this poor sanitation also leads to a poor quality of life because people will now be prone to diseases. And Dharavi is the biggest slum in Mumbai with over 1 million people living in around 1 square kilometer. So that is a big problem. Housing is a big problem. There is a need to get people in better housing and better accommodation. So what's the second reason then why Vision Mumbai was needed? So water supply and disposal of waste is a second reason. Now, we have just talked about the slums. They do not have piped water, and people have to rely on communal taps. That impacts on their quality of life because they now have problems with, it has an impact on sanitation. So cleanliness, because if they don't have enough water, if they have to use a communal tap and everybody has to take their turn to use the taps and get possibly a ration of water which is not necessarily enough for all their needs, then that is likely to lead to sanitation problems or hygiene problems, and it could lead to diseases as well, unfortunately. Then we also have what I've called here time poverty. And time poverty is where people are spending a lot more time on menial tasks that don't necessarily generate an income. So if they are going to fetch the water, that is taking up their time. And then because they don't have running water in the house, then they cannot do the tasks that they need to, the menial tasks or the ones that are not necessarily income generating. They don't do them quickly enough, and therefore they don't have sufficient time to do the tasks that actually matter, or the work that actually matters and can bring them an income. So that lowers their quality of life. Then the second thing is that the slums do not have toilets within them, and that is causing water pollution in the nearby Mithi River. because if they don't have toilets within the house, then that means that they're likely to, go outside, to use the toilet. And that means that whatever is out there as a result is then washed into the rivers, and that causes river pollution. Now, that is also not sanitary, it's not hygienic, and is also likely to lead to waterborne diseases such as typhoid and cholera and dysentery and so forth. Due to many people living in a small area, we've just said that not Mumbai, but Dharavi, which is the biggest slum, has over 1 million people living in 1 square kilometer. And because of that population density within a small area, garbage disposal also becomes a problem. And this has led to large garbage sites in Mumbai, which are a health concern. And as you can see in the picture that is right below here, if I can get the cursor there, so this picture here actually, it shows a waterway here, and that is just full of garbage that has not been properly disposed, and clearly that is a health concern. Okay, moving on to the third reason why Vision Mumbai was needed, and that is transport and air pollution. So Mumbai has over 22 million cars on the roads, and this leads to air pollution and related diseases. And we know that if we are talking about diseases, they are likely to affect the elderly or the vulnerable in the population. So the elderly and the very young. Although having said that, there are also other people that may not be within those two categories that may suffer with respiratory complications. And therefore, if they are exposed to too much too much pollution or poor air quality, then that exacerbates their health problems, and that is also likely to put a strain on the economy, because healthcare services will also be put under a lot of strain, because there are a lot of people seeking medical care and help, and that obviously will impact their economy. Then we have overcrowding in buses and trains, which is also a very big problem. There are actually I think I read somewhere that it was there are 8 million people that use the trains in Mumbai every single day. 8 million people. Now, if we put that into context, where London, for example, is concerned, London has a population of 8.9 million people. So if 8 million people are using the trains every day in Mumbai, then that's quite a large number of people. And then unfortunately, the safety on the trains has not been great in the past. So 10 people die on the trains every single day, which is really, really sad. So that is a problem that needs to be addressed. Okay, so we have categorized the problems into three. We've categorized them into three different problems, although having said that, some of them could actually be put separately and distinguished from one from the other. So for example, we could say we could talk about transport on its own, and air pollution on its own. We could talk about water supply and waste disposal on its own, and then we could talk about water pollution on its own. Anyway, let's go on to the exam style question. And the exam style question this time around here is an 8-mark question. So for a named mega city, Mumbai being one, and a mega city we know is a city that has more than 10 million people, assess, so weigh up the challenges faced by the population. So if you got a question like this in the examination, you would then need to talk about each of these problems that we have discussed here, because they are all challenges that are faced by the population that is living in the mega city, which is Mumbai. And then in terms of weighing them up, because you get 4 marks for your knowledge, and then you get 4 marks for assessing. So for the assessing, then you would need to weigh up which one you think is the biggest challenge out of these 3. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. The problems that we have discussed in that last slide suggest that Mumbai needs to improve its sustainability and also the quality of life of its people. So moving on to the second question, the what. So what is Vision Mumbai? Vision Mumbai was suggested by an American firm called McKinsey in 2003. The idea was to invest 40 billion US dollars to improve Mumbai. And this is a top-down development project that would involve a partnership between the government of India, property companies, and investors. Now, we know that a top-down development project is a large-scale project which involves large entities that can afford the project, because if it's large scale, then it means it's a very expensive project. So you have to have entities that can afford to pay for such a project. Those entities include governments. They also include IGOs. So IGOs are intergovernmental organizations. They also include transnational corporations. So, entities that actually have enough money or have a lot of money that can afford to pay for such a large-scale project. And we do know that one of the features of top-down development projects is that they don't necessarily consult the public or the local communities on what those communities need. The government will decide normally, or ordinarily the government will decide what is best for the country or for the community and go ahead with whatever they have decided to go ahead with without much consultation. Okay, so Vision Mumbai was to be completed by the year 2050. And the basic problem to solve was Mumbai's worsening quality of life, air, water pollution, and traffic congestion. So those are some of the problems that we talked about on the first slide. So the why was it needed? We then now are going on to the what was done where Vision Mumbai was concerned so as to solve those problems. So simply put, Vision Mumbai would make Mumbai more sustainable. Now, most GCSE specifications here in the UK use the UN definition of sustainable development. Now, that definition or meaning of sustainable development was put forward in 1987. And it normally says that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the current generation or the present generation or present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So that is sustainable development. Now, a sustainable city, however, is what Vision Mumbai was aiming to become. And a sustainable city means one that provides a good quality of life for all its residents without using up resources in a way that means that future generations will have to accept a lower quality of life. And Vision Mumbai, therefore, to solve these problems, which we've just discussed up here, which were a worsening quality of life, air and water pollution, and traffic congestion, came up with 3 targets to reach this goal. And those targets are shown down here. And the first one was to build 1 million low-cost homes and reduce slums. Then the second one was to improve road and rail infrastructure, so transport. And then the third one was to improve air and water quality by reducing pollution. And by doing these 3 here, then Mumbai would be on its way to becoming a more sustainable city and providing a good quality of life for its residents. Okay, let's move on. All right, so moving on to the how. How are Vision Mumbai's targets going to be implemented? So we've talked about 3 targets on the last slide, and now we are going to be talking about the 4 themes that they were going to be implemented under. And the first one was to demolish slums and build and provide cheaper housing. Then secondly, they were to improve the road, bus and rail transport. Then to improve water, sanitation, and healthcare. Then lastly, to boost economic growth. Now, some of the targets here, the ones that are in green actually, were very easy to complete and could be completed in the short to medium term, while others would take longer as the project was due for completion in 2050. So the ones that I have highlighted here in green are the ones that could be completed quickly, and that is what was actually done. So the first one that was completed quickly had to do with the trains, so rail transport, and the train capacity and safety was improved. So that's a really good thing, because then that would imply that the number of deaths that were taking place as a result of safety concerns would be reduced. Then we have roads. The roads were widened and beautified. Okay, so that may imply that there was a reduction in congestion on the roads and a reduction in pollution as a result. Because if you have less cars idling on the roads for longer, then it means that your air quality is likely to improve. Then we have 300 extra public toilets being built. So that now solves a problem, not necessarily completely solves, but reduces a problem of sanitation and water pollution, because now people can use proper toilets which have a proper sewage system or are connected to the sewage system, and therefore the waste disposal is a lot more sanitary and hygienic. Then we have the last one here, which is 325 polluted spaces that were used as dumping sites were now restored. So they were no longer used for dumping. Instead, they were restored in terms of having greenery. So all the rubbish was removed from there, and now they were just green. So these were 4 very quick things that were done that were to improve the quality of life of people living in Mumbai. However, having said that, I know that it said that the completion was 2050, but we shall see later on what happened. These here, somebody could argue that these here are quite simple things that, there are things that could have been done very, very quickly and simply, which is what actually did happen, and that they are they could be described as superficial, if you like, because they are not necessarily solving the main problem. And the main problem was a problem of housing, because housing, is the most expensive part of this project, and that is why 40 billion US dollars was allocated to the project in the first place, because that's the key problem that really does need to be solved. Okay. On to the fourth and last question. What was the outcome? Was Vision Mumbai successful or not? Now, before we talk about the outcome, I think it would be prudent of us to have a look at this exam style question that we have here, so that as we discuss the successes and the shortcomings of Vision Mumbai, we can bear that question in mind, so that we can have an idea of how we would use the information to answer this particular exam question. So the exam question reads as follows. For a named megacity, evaluate the extent to which different strategies used to improve its sustainability have been successful. So this is an evaluation question, and you are looking at these strategies that were used, and you are thinking about the extent to which they were successful or were not. So were they actually successful? And to what extent? Is that to a great extent? Is that to not to a great extent? Were they not successful? And so on. So think about what we are going to discuss here from that particular perspective, or within that context. Okay, so let's go on then to whether Vision Mumbai was successful, and we are going to start off with the first implementation, one umbrella under which the project was going to be implemented, and that was to demolish the slums and to build and provide cheaper accommodation or housing. So 45,000 slums, and by the way, I have the ones that I consider to be successes. I have put in green, yes, I've put in green, and then the ones that could be considered to be arguments against or maybe not so successful are the ones that are in red. So let's begin our discussion here then. So we have 45,000 slums being demolished by 2007. Now, if this project was suggested by McKinsey, the American firm that we talked about earlier, and it was suggested in 2003, the project started, it means that the project started around that time. So possibly in 2004 is when it started. In fact, when I was looking this project up, that is when most people say it was started. So by 2007, 45,000 slums had been demolished and 200,000 people had been rehoused into new flats. Now, that's a good thing because it means that they have a better quality of life now that they're living in these new flats. The flats have got piped water, so they no longer have to go to the communal taps to fetch water. They have a proper sewage system, so they don't have to go outside the house to go to the toilet. And obviously, it's a better quality of life. They're living in a new accommodation and so on. It's a more sturdy house. It's well built, so it's not subject to the elements. So if there's a lot of rainfall, they are not likely to be susceptible or vulnerable to flooding and so on. So that's a really good thing. However, if we are then now talking about what may have been counterpoints to this target that they had here, and one of them is that 200,000 people being moved into the new flats implies that 800,000 people were still living in the slums. Now, if the idea was to demolish all the slums and build and provide cheaper housing, then it means that not even half, not even a quarter really, of the people living in slums have been rehoused. And therefore, that also implies that not all the slums have been demolished. Okay, so that could be an argument against this, or a counter argument if you like. Then the new flats cost more in rent than the slums. Now, let's think about the way they were going to implement this. And to the implementation was to knock down the slums, or demolish them rather, and provide cheaper housing. However, that is not the case. And if we go back to our definition of a sustainable city that provides a better quality of life for its residents, then that may not be perceived as a way of providing a better quality of life, because if you're increasing their rents, it means that their quality of life is going to decrease because they will have less disposable income, and now they are going to struggle to pay rent. Okay, then many would have preferred slum improvement like piped water and sewage treatment instead of demolition. So some people preferred to live in their old accommodation in the in the slums, because the slums had more of a community feel to them. And apart from that, the slums also had a lot of cottage industries, and cottage industries are where people do a business from home. And there were also other small businesses that were, small scale manufacturing or small scale industry taking place in the slums, which then means that those people that were doing those jobs there are likely to have been moved from the slums into this new accommodation, and therefore not necessarily be able to continue doing their business. Okay, let's carry on though. The high-rise flats have split communities. So yes, there was a community feel in the slums, but now when they're living in the flats, that's no longer there. Then many residents believe that Vision Mumbai benefited just the rich and the powerful. Now, the reason they think that and they feel that is because the property developers actually focused more on building the better houses, so the luxury accommodation or the luxury flats, which were targeted at the rich. And the reason they focused more on that is because they were then going to make more money by selling those luxury flats, other than building low-cost accommodation for the poor people. So because of that, some of these people, the poorer people, feel that they have not benefited. The people who have actually benefited are the rich. Then rapid growth of slums means that sewage treatment and disposal cannot keep up. So we said at the start that Mumbai has 1,000 new residents every single day. So it continues, the population of Mumbai continues to grow. So the population of the slums as well continues to grow, which means that the housing in the slums is still not coping, and therefore sewage disposal and waste disposal continues to become an even bigger problem. Okay, so let's move on to the second way in which Vision Mumbai was going to be implemented, and that was to improve road, bus, and rail transport. So successes then: train capacity and safety was improved, which is really, really good. And that was by improving the platforms. For example, for the trains, the platforms were raised so that people would not fall into the gaps between them. And that obviously reduces the number of casualties from train accidents, which is really, really good. Because as we had said before, 10 people die on trains every day, which is just really, really sad. 72 trains by 2015. New trains means that there's likely to be less congestion, and that was done by 2015, which is really good. And then most of the roads were widened and beautified. I think we talked about that before. Platforms were improved. We've talked about that. Air quality was also improved. So how was the air quality improved? So by use of LPG. So LPG being leaded petroleum gas. So that uses both petrol and gas, which means that if you're using more gas, you're using more gas, which is cheaper, and then also it's not as big a polluter. And then in some industries that were using coal, LPG was also used, so gas, which is a cleaner fossil fuel. So that's one way of trying to mitigate the problem of air pollution or bad air quality. Then the other way they improved the air quality was through unleaded petrol. And lastly, higher taxation on older cars. So older cars are known to pollute a lot more because the technology is older. So by taxing them more, then that encourages people to buy newer cars other than pay a lot more in tax for an older car. So that is aimed obviously at reducing air pollution and improving the air quality. So what were some of the counterpoints to all this that had been done? So some people have been skeptical that the data showing that air quality improved may not be accurate, or it may be data that is not necessarily representing the true picture on the ground. Then there are still people, unfortunately, who are getting killed trying to cross the train tracks. Okay, and then the trains obviously are still congested because the population of Mumbai continues to grow. So number 3 here, improve water, sanitation, and healthcare. So the new flats had piped water, like we had mentioned, and sewerage systems, which is really good. So that improves sanitation. 300 extra public toilets were built. Very good, because it improves sanitation as well. 325 polluted spaces used for dumping were restored. We talked about that. That was good. But then the counter arguments: water quality in Mumbai is still worse due to sewage discharge. And obviously that is because the problem of slums still continues, or slums are still a problem. And then the beaches, unfortunately, are dirtier and unsafe for recreation. Now that is as a result of the waste disposal as well. Then as far as the last point is concerned, so boosting the economic growth. Now, the construction obviously must have benefited the large housing development companies, the ones that were building the housing, because they must have made a lot of money from constructing these new homes, and especially where they were building the luxury apartments that we talked about. However, something that was a negative was that I think I discussed this before with you, and that was the cottage industries and small-scale businesses being forced out of the slum areas and possibly not having a new place to go and set up their business. So that is likely to have lost the country money in terms of GDP, or and these people money as well in terms of an income. Okay, so now the question then is now, back to you in terms of what do you think? Do you think that overall Mumbai was successful or not? And how would you evaluate the extent to which these different strategies here have improved Mumbai's sustainability? Have they actually improved it? And to what extent have they improved it? Is it to a large extent? Is it to a medium extent? Or have they not improved Mumbai at all? Have they just been a flop, or have they been unsuccessful? So that would be up to you to decide. And remember that for an 8-mark question, there is no right or wrong answer. And therefore you have to use the information that you have to weigh up the points and then come up with your own definitive judgment as to whether you think the project has been successful or not. Okay. That brings us to the end of the Vision Mumbai top-down development case study. I hope that you have found the information useful. The video on the LSS Health Charity bottom-up development case study will be linked in the description below and will also be available on the case study playlist. It will provide information for the other side of the debate on bottom-up versus top-down development projects. Thanks for joining in this journey to excellent exam results. All the best, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.